人類に返してもらうぞ。俺は貴様を。総員戦闘態勢。了解しました。行くぞ。
ゴジラ怪獣惑星。
Many months later.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
My lord, what a premise, am I right? After thousands of years and a war between humanity, aliens and monsters, the humans had fled the Earth all those years ago, alongside the last few refugees of the alien race, returned to planet Earth and in hopes to reclaim it. On it, they figure out that Godzilla has killed all other monsters, becoming the sole tyrannical ruler, making the planet evolve to his very bidding. A epic battle begins as our protagonist Haruo tries to defeat this seemingly unstoppable force, driven by pure determination, knowing that it can only be Godzilla or humanity on this planet. And the day where that gets decided is today. Alongside this treacherous journey, the plot unravels itself as twist after twist arises. First, they figure out that the super weapon Mechagodzilla that they built all those years ago has become a plague that threatens to wipe out the planet if not dealt with. However, it's also the only actual option at killing Godzilla. So is it worth slaying a monster if it means becoming one yourself? The plot then even further unravels, as in truth humanity can thrive, for insect-human hybrids now roam these lands and are willing to give humanity a second shot under new terms and conditions. However, the mysterious ex-chief now also betray humanity, wanting to sacrifice the planet to their god Ghidorah. A battle of unimaginable proportions commences as Haruo now has to figure out how to deal with his rage for an absolute tyrannical creature that may now be their only hope. So my question to the makers of this series is, how the actual fuck do you mess this up this badly? Godzilla the Anime Trilogy is truly an interesting piece of Godzilla media, releasing after the massive hit Shin Godzilla, which got the franchise back up and kicking in Japan. In my opinion, it is the worst piece of Godzilla media ever conjured up. Yes, even worse than Godzilla's Revenge. But why is that? How do you ruin Godzilla this badly? Well, fellow folks, today, in the first episode of both Carrotolotls Godzilla and anime reviews, we shall figure out, how do you ruin Godzilla? So to kick things off, I'd like to talk about the first episode in this three-part series, Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. And in a sort of hot take and pretty unpopular opinion of mine, I actually really like this movie. The animation is stunning in my opinion. The plot is interesting enough. The characters are meh. However, the motivations for these characters are clear, which makes them a lot easier to understand than they shall become in the next two parts. And Godzilla is genuinely done very, very well in this movie. He actually only appears like in the last quarter, but you feel his presence throughout the entire thing. Like, they build up to him, and when he's there, I kid you not, like the entire last 30 minutes of the movie is just one big battle of humanity versus Godzilla. It's amazing. The futuristic setting, of course, also allows for set pieces the franchise has never seen before, and they are utilized very well. Also, I'm just gonna throw it out the way right now. The absolute best thing about this trilogy is the music. The Godzilla theme is genuinely my second favorite Godzilla theme ever, and especially in this first movie, there are some absolute bangers of tracks. And I think it's important that you understand that as a standalone movie, I enjoy this. I'll talk about why I think that the continuation of this is absolute dog water in a few seconds. However, let's address the elephant in the room. The entire premise of this trilogy is broken. I mean, what? There was a war against monsters with every creature Toho has conjured up taking part in it. We want to see that. Like, fuck the future. I want to go back into the past. And it certainly doesn't help that all that this movie does is say how dangerous and epic the past was. I kid you not, you cannot go 30 seconds in this movie without somebody saying that it's 20 years into the future, and back then things were so different. If the past is so much better to put into movie form, then why didn't you do that? And if you remember my summary, the story is that Godzilla has killed off every other monster. So you can't just bring them all back and then have your monster planet story that way. So how about instead we just make Godzilla a species? Like, there's just several of these things walking around, but there's one very, very big one. Except, no, that's a terrible idea, cause that ruins, like, the entire premise of Godzilla. And it's not like they do much with this plot point anyway. You see one of Godzilla's offspring, then they realize that this ruins the entire concept behind Godzilla being this anomaly, this creature beyond our comprehension, and just turn him into some breedable species. So they scratch that idea completely, and from the second movie onwards, it's only one more Godzilla. So I hope that you see the problem in them going that the entire planet is just evolved to be Godzilla now, and that there's multiple Godzillas. Because if everything is Godzilla, then no one is. Oh, speaking of the second movie, I don't want to speak about the second movie. Alright team, which cast of monsters should we cast for what may be the biggest Godzilla series and project we've ever done?
You should add King Ghidorah because he has a major money draw.
Good idea, Timmy. What about you, Kenny?
I think we should add Mechagodzilla because that hasn't been done like 1 billion times already.
Alright, quite the basic cast we've got going on. How about we throw in a curveball like Orga or Biollante?
I think we should add the Man-Eater.
You mean the Vines from Godzilla's Revenge, the most hated Godzilla movie we've made so far? You're the new CEO of the company. As you may be able to guess by that little skit, Godzilla Planet of the Monsters features a stellar cast of 3 kaiju. Remember, when you want to make the worst possible Godzilla project, hire a writer that doesn't care about the IP at all and really just wants to make a human drama, which leads to Mechagodzilla being turned into a city and Ghidorah becoming free noodles. And it's not like Godzilla is any better in the second or third movie. He's not even in them. They do it yet again where he only shows up in the last quarter. But unlike in the first movie where he was constantly in the background stalking our human cast, he's just taking a nap in these two. The motherfucker's just asleep, I kid you not. He spends 90% of both episode 2 and 3 just standing in place until the plot happens and then, oh boy, I gotta go take a piss. If you can't even get the monster part right, then what are you doing?
What are you doing? Making a mistake. Making a mistake.
And for any of the keen viewers that have looked at the timestamps of this video, you may realize that I have surprisingly little to say about both movie 2 and 3. Movie 2 actually isn't that bad. It has a lot going on in the human story. They discover the weird insect hybrids and fuck them because somebody thought it's a good idea to have a sex scene in a Godzilla movie. But as we said, Godzilla isn't even really participating and Mechagodzilla also isn't. Which makes this a good human drama, I must admit. But this is just a bad Godzilla movie. The third movie is just genuinely one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I do not recall anything besides Godzilla fighting Ghidorah in the most boring fight ever, and Haruo tripping on straight acid for like 30 minutes in a row. And that's because that is all this movie is. The Master Chief of the ex-chief betrays the human chief, and then the chief goes chiefing in the kitchen.
Fucking bass is fucking raw!
And then Ghidorah spawns in, and then the movie basically is done. Yeah. And as I said, since they don't do anything interesting with the monsters and not even with the humans in the third one, they have effectively ruined Godzilla. I would like to emphasize that I in no way think that this trilogy in of itself is completely terrible. As I said, the first movie I personally like, and the second movie actually does character work that is quite rare to find in Godzilla movies. I really like how they focus on the whole "is it worth killing a monster to become a monster" thing. And there's actually some pretty emotional plot beats, at least for me. However, from the perspective of a story and a writer, there are just several things that do not work. I think you can sum up the writing of this entire trilogy in one single scene. A scene where the techno-aliens betray the humans and take over their spaceship, holding them at gunpoint. And that is never really brought up again until it suddenly is. But now Ghidorah comes in and just destroys the ship anyways, making the entire setup of the betrayal irrelevant. Things in this movie have no payoff. They took Chekhov's gun and fucking shot themselves with it. And if we look back at these few points that I've made, I think I can draw a pretty good conclusion as to what you need to do to really ruin a Godzilla series. Ruin your monster side by making them way too overpowered and inconsistent for the audience to actually care about. Secondly, like to admit it or not, humans are just as important as monsters in these movies. Yet that doesn't mean that you should focus on them to a point where they get an entire plot completely disconnected from the main one, and you have set up more stuff than you can ever successfully deliver on. And thirdly and lastly, make a story that is completely carried by your monster to a point where after the first movie, it's tired, and when it comes crashing down, so will the entire plot. Hey, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching the first episode of Carrotolotls Godzilla and Anime Reviews. This is, as I said, the first time that I've ever done a video of this style, so I'm sure that it isn't perfect and it's something I'll have to get used to as time goes on, so please do give me feedback down below as to how I can make this better. And with that, I'm gonna have to say, this has been Carrotolotl. Thanks a lot for watching, and we will see each other again very soon.